Before starting this video, I only have one request. Please go in with an open mind. I'll try to keep it as factual as I possibly can without involving my opinion too much. After watching this video, you can have whatever opinion you want. You're entitled to it. Don't be a sheep, be a shepherd. Hold your own thoughts without the herd mentality. Now, there has been a lot of talk about the proposed Season 1 changes. If you don't know what Season 1 is, it's basically a patch that will be deployed in the near future, which changes some of the mechanics in-game while adding additional features. The three main points that they discussed were the talent system, the uses of gold, and champion masteries. They also discussed spectator mode and how they'll make it easier to watch and understand the pro matches, but that's pretty self-explanatory. This is one of those things that is ever evolving and never stopping. So, here is a brief description of the mentioned points. The talent system will enhance the champion's abilities in some unknown way and is separate to the loadout system. You will have your talents on top of your normal loadout. The champion masteries are getting more rewards. From what they've mentioned, we can see skins, emotes, sprays, titles, and other masteries. So the higher level your champion, which is separate to the account level, the rarer your rewards will be. While they're also adding cosmetics, which can be bought with gold, the biggest thing is upgradable cards. So using an unknown amount of gold, you can upgrade your card to a maximum of flat stats, the maximum being 5 times, and it'll be small numbers, 1% maximum from what we can tell. This is to show that you play a lot of games, so because you have the gold to spend on upgrading the cards instead of getting the full collection. Lastly, we talk about masteries. I know I just mentioned it, but I missed one point for good reason. They are planning on locking the talents for each champion behind their level. So on stream, it was mentioned the levels will be 1, 3 and 5. Which makes sense because at level 4 you play the champions in the competitive queue. Now, let's break them down. When I first heard of the talents being locked behind masteries in the Dev Inside video, I thought it was pretty weird. I was thinking along the lines of level 5, 10 and 15, which are a huge grind. But in the stream they mentioned the levels were planning to be 1, 3 and 5, and well, I love it. It will ease the new players into playing the champions. The higher leveled you are, the more you understand the champions and the more you can experiment with the mechanics. So let's not worry about this anymore. The second thing to discuss is the talent system. We don't know a lot about the workings of this system. Limited amount was said both in the video and stream, but from what they said, they sound a lot like specialty cards. Now, initially in CB9 on the December 9th, 2015, this was part of the deck which changed the ability in a dramatic way, but gave us a set playstyle. Barrack originally was supposed to have 1 turret in his kit. A card called Double Time was a specialty card which made Barrack have 2 weaker turrets. Similarly, he had a card called Mega Turret, which buffed the turret and it fired fast heat-seeking rockets doing AoE damage. This was however back during the time when hi-rez wanted to focus on the customization of the champions more than new champions and maps. So you may be wondering what changed. Paladins is now emphasizing maps and champions while having only 16 cards per champion which empower abilities, not change them in dramatical ways in most cases. Again, back to early closed beta, Overwatch went into beta at the same time. A lot of people didn't get into the Overwatch beta and well, they found Paladins. The rest is pretty self-explanatory. The Paladins community was small but tightly knit. Most of the older players now you see in game will know other older players as well. So when there was an influx of new players, calling an influx is an understatement. It was more like a storm. They demanded something more, very similar to Overwatch. More champions and maps. So, with every passing patch, you could see more and more customization getting removed from the game, but adding more champions and very diverse maps. So while I'm still confident the old Paladins would have been successful as well, I do love this one. Don't get me wrong, this game is in a lot more balanced shape than I could have ever imagined. Anyways, back to the talent system. Again, we don't know the exact mechanics, but they look like specialty cards. And again, it's going back to the customizable Paladins, which most CB players fell in love with. However, while the old players are glad they're adding talents, the newer players are not. It's adding complexity to the game, and that's why most players don't want it. Another reason is that people in general don't like chain, which again is acceptable. Trust me when I say this, the Paladins we have present is nowhere near as complex as it was in closed beta. If you don't want to take my word for it, I'll give you some examples, but first we need to discuss the last point, because it ties in with this point. The biggest uproar was caused by the flat stat upgradable system. This was meant to be a gold sink for players after they've bought all the things they can with gold. From what hi-rez has said, this is what I understand of it. When you first craft a card, you'll get the basic version of the card. Through playing games, you will earn gold, and with this gold you will upgrade your card with flat stats for a maximum of 5 times. Drybear has said that these updates will be small, 1% maximum. This will show that you play enough to have gold to spend on upgrades and not buying all the cards. Currently you can only buy recolors for around 5k gold and the cards themselves, which is 1200 gold per card. So why the backlash from the community? Well, people seem to think that somehow this is making the game a pay to win. Now, remember when I said keep an open mind in the beginning? Start now. This does not make the game pay to win, not one bit, and I will give you examples while explaining why it won't. Let's address the first point. The more upgraded cards you have, the more likely to win because you do more damage. Drybear has said that the cards upgradable will be a maximum of 5 times, and like I've used before, we will use 1% one again. Kinessa hits for 1800 fully charged headshots, so with a fully upgraded card, she will do 1818 damage. Second, we will take Drogoz, who does 950 damage per missile and fires a lot faster than Kinessa. His increased damage will be 960, which has been rounded up to the nearest whole number. Now, when I'm in a team fight or one-on-one, you're usually left with a number bigger than 100, which is still very low considering the health pool from champions range from 1800 to 9000. Adding the extra 10 or even 0.34 if using Grok will make little to no impact. Even if we assume 2 players of similar skills playing against each other with one having upgraded cards and the other having just basics, the winner will be decided on their game sense, mechanical skills, and aim. But one-on-ones are rare in this game, so we look at team coordination as well. The team with the better coordination and unfavorable picks will still win their matchups against the team with the meta picks and no communication. We've all experienced and seen this in matches, online or in a present situation. So now we arrive at the main point, pay to win. A lot of people are saying pay to win, and frankly it solidifies one thought. The players calling pay to win did not play the early closed beta when the game was the most pay to win state. In the beginning there was an entirely different card system. You could only craft cards from the cards you had, no dust or gold, just plain old cards. Now you got a card from a champion's chest which is rewarded to you after every win in a match, but it only dropped 1 card. Or you could buy Radiant chest which dropped 5 cards with a guaranteed rare. To get a legendary, which was staples in most decks, you need to have at least 125 common cards to get a legendary. But you could have a duplicate legendary, so to get a unique legendary you need to have at least 3 legendary cards, which brings up the total to 375 commons. This is assuming the worst case scenario. You could speed that up by buying Radiant chest, which dropped 5 cards with a guaranteed rare, or grind out wins. One thing to also note is that you could buy Radiant chest with gold as well back then. They didn't drop gold back then, but it costed 5k gold, or even bigger because I can't remember the exact number. But that's only card crafting. We still haven't discussed how the cards were structured. In the bottom of the cards back then there were 2 stats. On the left hand side was the percentage and on the right hand side was the plus number. The percentage was an increase in damage and on the right was an increase in the health pool. So as an example, Fernando had a card called Cloak of Flames. It dealt 75 damage per second to all nearby enemies, The stat on the cards were 8% damage increase, but 300% or 300 in health pool. Similarly, Barrick had a card called Battle Focus, which gave him 30% attack speed. Before the blunderbuss, he had a projectile weapon. The stats for that was plus 20% and plus 350 health. So when I see hi-rez talking about adding 1% flat stats in Season 1, it's minuscule compared to what it was. And even then, it wasn't as broken as it may sound currently. I'll leave a link in the description to a Google Sheet for some decks which I made back for my team when I used to coach them. And you can see how flat stat could add up to 130 damage or even 2000 plus in health pool. Moving on to CB12, also known as the Chicken Patch. This was because the patch introduced ultimates and a new card system was added. This is where crafting points, CP, were introduced, and they had the following values. For every duplicate you got, a common would be worth 1 CP, uncommon 3 CP, rare 9 CP, epic 27 CP, and finally legendary would be 81 CP. To craft new cards using CPs, the values were common would be 3 CP, uncommon would be 9 CP, rare would be 27 CP, epic would be 81 CP, and legendary would be 243 CP. Now, we're used to seeing 5 cards in our loadouts, but in CB12 you could have 15. You chose 3 cards from each of rarity as your deck, and in-game you would draw 2 out of 3 cards. You will then proceed to pick 1 from the 2, and this will become your hand. So it really was a card game mixed with a shooter. Now we move on to CB14, bringing out the big guns. This was the patch in which the current Rocket's ultimate was added. Here we don't just see a change in the crafting system, but also an overhaul to the decks. Now you can only have 5 cards in your deck, which you choose in the starting of the match. Neutral cards were also added. These are cards that can be shared between all champions and will eventually become the current item system after quite a few iterations. Now, because you can only have 5 cards in a loadout, it meant that early game and late game would be the same. However, to combat that, hi-rez added in-game leveling. So the longer you play, the more you can upgrade your cards. Again, think the current loadout making system, with different rarities, but they upgrade in-game. This wasn't the only change, however. Each rarity was now given a new purpose. Commons would be defensive cards, uncommons would be movements or healing, epics were ability modification, and legendary were mainly the flat stats, which we discussed earlier, with some ability modification. Feeling confused yet? Don't, because we still have a lot more confusion. In the next 2 patches, in-game decks were changed yet again. Now for a match you would make 2 decks, both in the game lobby. One will be your common cards, the first implementation of items, and they were previously known as the neutral cards, and the second will be your main loadout. In-game your common cards will not rank up, but your loadout will. On top of that, the common cards will now be upgraded flat stats, not legendary cards anymore. Uncommon, rare, epic and legendary now become champion specific. Moving on to CB17, Kinessa introduction, we see the crafting system change currency. CP gets removed from the game and they're now replaced with gold. The cards value have been adjusted accordingly. I can't remember or find the exact numbers, sorry about that, but they were a lot fairer. If you had a founders pack or bought it after this patch, you were awarded 20,000 gold. Additionally, every Radiant chest roll granted you 1000 gold, and Champion chest, which gave you 1 card previously, were removed from the game. This patch also saw the introduction of Champion Masteries, which gave you gold as well. And if the old CB players won't have nightmares again, Resuscitate was added to the game. CB18, in which Androxus dashes in, card leveling gets updated in-game yet again. So now only at level 1, 5 and 10 can you upgrade legendary cards. Another great news, Resuscitate gets removed from the game. CB19 was a big patch in terms of gameplay. Flat stats have now been removed completely from the game, thus giving us the cards we know today. And the flat stat number that were removed were now implemented in the champion's kit. So every champion got an update of around 10% damage increase. In a way, CB20 was the final nail in the coffin in terms of the direction of the game. When Yin got added, they also announced that due to community response, champion variety over the crazy customization, champions will no longer be free, so you now purchase them with gold or get the founders pack and get them all, past and future. The rarity, uncommon, is completely removed from the game, and the cards are no longer upgradable as well. Instead, you choose a rarity of cards in which you want to load out, the first iteration of the current loadout system. The crazy customizable cards we saw in the early beta are now either completely removed from the game or they become part of the normal kit. In CB22, burn cards were added in the game, and these became items in just a few patches. But from a gameplay perspective, the current siege engine mode was also added. Before, it was a battle to stop the engine from reaching your base and destroying it before it destroyed your gates. If both gates were destroyed, then your vault was under pressure. Destroy that and you either win or lose the game. Finally, in CB28 we get our current card system, one card to rule them all. This was replaced instead of buying the same card 4 times in 4 different rarities. Previously it used to cost 1,800 gold to get all of the cards, but now it's been reduced to 1,200. Of course, that is the history of just the card system and crafting, while briefly touching other big changes. Maps got updated a lot as well, but that's a separate video for the future. Finally, coming back to upgradable cards in Season 1. Considering how the cards were in closed beta, do they really sound like a big difference? Or pay to win? 1% damage increase in Season 1 versus a 30% damage increase from one Cassie card? Or would you prefer to play 3 to 4 hours approximately to get a full champion card collection, or grinding out 200 plus games to get that one unique legendary card? Remember that Radiant chests now drop gold only if you had a card. Before, in theory, you could get 4 commons and 1 rare, which I did once. If you start a new collection, this would give you no new cards to craft at all. See, the thing is, even back then the game wasn't pay to win. It had some crazy crafting systems, but they lasted for a maximum 1 or 2 patches. Whenever they revamped the card system, all the players were reimbursed heavily. As an example, when they removed 1 common craft from the patch, they reimburse you by giving you 1 Radiant chest, which gave you 5 cards minimum. In future patches, post CB17 they offered gold. Also consider that in early closed beta there was a patch every single week. So what we have now is a less complex, but still some complex game mechanics. With one of the fairest in-game card systems, you get gold in multiple ways very easily. Plus, for login every day of the week, you can even get crystals. Albeit it's little, but it's still better than nothing. If you do get a Founders Pack, you get all the champions past and future for the same price it's been since the beginning of closed beta, with some chests and exclusive skins. We also need to remember that hi-rez is a business after all and ultimately need funds to continue to develop this game. It doesn't cost money to play, it's a free to play after all, and they certainly don't lock up anything that can make you better than your opponents. Only skins are locked behind a paywall. See, there are a lot of companies that will lock things behind a paywall that will be necessary to win the game or give you a significant advantage. hi-rez haven't done that, and we should respect that. Final point, don't judge a book by its cover. By this I mean 2 things. Firstly, hi-rez has given us an overview and no exact details have been confirmed. It could be something new or a very similar system like specialty cards. Secondly, don't blindly follow anyone. Just because they don't like it does mean you have to hate it as well. You are your own person and you make your own choices, which again comes back to the herd mentality I said in the beginning of the video. In the OB42 patch stream, they have said they're working on new systems as well. So again, it's not like they don't listen to the community or the feedback. Now, I would like to thank you all for staying here this long and taking this information. Whatever you think now are going to be your thoughts alone, but at least now I'm hoping you're an educated consumer. I'm personally excited for the changes in Season 1, especially the talent trees. If you notice, I have a bit of a sore throat, so I may sound a bit funny, but again guys, thank you all for watching. If you liked the video or helped you, please like it, and if you want to see more content from me, please consider subscribing as well. I will see you all in the realm.